Happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day, everybody. It's a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. A lot to get to, including a recap of the weekend, Ben Johnson, and more.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Matt Dery with you. Welcome, everybody, on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions, a holiday Monday edition, January 16th and Tuesday, January 17th, on the Locked On Podcast Network. Indeed, your team every day. Talking Detroit Lions football with you, as we do each and every day. A lot to get into and discuss here on a Monday. Coming up on the show, the latest on Ben Johnson, a report out there that he's the favorite down in Carolina, but there are some other candidates talking to the Panthers. We'll get into that coming up momentarily. One of the local college football coaches, breaking news, is not going to the NFL. We'll get into that. What about that Seahawks-Rams game from last week? A little report over the weekend about how the Lions should be upset, and I got to throw some caution into the wind about that as well. And also, what did we see over the weekend in these NFL Super Wildcard Weekend games that kind of opened your eyes about the Lions and what the Lions need? I want to talk about that as well right here on the program. We appreciate you making us your first listen. Locked On Lions is brought to you today by our friends at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your first entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. You can follow us on Twitter at Dery Speaks, D-E-R-Y Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter, Facebook, Matt Dery fan page, and what's up to everybody watching on Locked On Lions YouTube. Thanks to my friend Jamie Edmonds at Channel 4. She had me on the Sports Final Edition show last night as we talked some Lions with Jamie on the Local 4 last night. All right, so let's start with this. This is where I want to get into. Over the weekend, Adam Schefter reported that the NFL reviewed some of the refereeing calls and the officiated calls during the Rams-Seahawks game in Seattle that, of course, knocked the Lions out of the playoffs. And apparently, according to the report, the NFL found some issues with the officiating in that game. I'm not going to rehash the Seattle Rams game and talk about the missed personal foul call, the unnecessary roughness call that shouldn't have been on Jalen Ramsey, and the missed DK Metcalf call, and the running into the punter call. They were all bad calls. But I'm not going to sit here and whine and complain that the Lions got screwed by the refs, and that's why they didn't get into the playoffs. Now, the report did say that one NFL official or front office person said that the Lions should be livid at how they got knocked out. Again, the Lions went on last Sunday night to put on one of the best performances this organization has put on in decades in beating the Packers. And they did that knowing before the game that they were already eliminated. And they still went out and won. And they earned everything that they did during the season this year to get to 9-8. They're on the rise. They're playing great. Heck, Dan Campbell's going to be on Monday Night Football on the Manning cast tonight. So that's pretty cool. But I don't want to hear, and I'm sorry if I upset some fans here, I don't want to hear about, well, the refs cost the Lions the season. Well, see, Adam Schefter's reporting that the NFL says that the refs blew the Rams-Seahawks game, so the Lions should have been in the playoffs. No, the Lions should have stopped the Seahawks one time, forced a, almost swore, a freaking punt in that game, and maybe they would have won. And they wouldn't have had to have needed help in order to get in. The Lions lost to Seattle, and I know this was early in the year, 48-45, in which the Seahawks never punted in that game. All right? The Lions shouldn't have choked away the loss in Minnesota earlier this year when Dan Campbell made some mistakes late. He had an injured kicker try a long field goal into that wind, and it backfired. All right? The Lions also made their own bed too. Was that game poorly officiated out in Seattle? Sure it was. I'm not stupid. That running into the punter was a joke. All right, the unnecessary roughness on Jalen Ramsey for a personal foul was a farce. But I'm not going to sit here and just blame the refs and say, oh, the Lions got screwed. It's all the refs. It's the league. No. Sure, the Lions could be upset. The Lions also started the year 1-6, folks. Great ending to the year, 6-2. I think we saw what this team was made of the last 8 games. But you can't erase the first 7. I'm sorry. First 9. They struggled in a big way. 8-2 in their last 10 games to finish 9-8. 1-6 in their first 7. 8-2, 1-6. But I'm not, maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you want to comment. Maybe you say, no, Matt, this is the league conspiring against the Lions. This is what happens all the time. The Lions get hosed. The Lions get screwed. That's fine. But this team had some opportunities. I'm not even going to bring up the Carolina game because, quite honestly, every team has a clunker. Every team plays poorly, except the Chargers, who always choke. But you know what I mean. It's kind of ironic. Ben Johnson could be hired by the Carolina Panthers, yet you could argue that was his worst game of the year. The Lions' worst game of the year, too. A little bit ironic. I digress. I don't want to be all negative today. Not where I'm going. I just wanted to make a point that I saw a lot of this on social media over the weekend after this Schefter story. And while I agree that that was a poorly officiated game, I don't agree that it cost the Lions the season. I'm just 1-6 where we were ready to quit the show and we had some fun with that. I can't forget that. All right, this just in. This hour that we're recording, Santa Ono, who seems like a really cool guy. Like, I'm into Santa Ono, the new president at Michigan. Just seems like a regular dude. Puts out a tweet that says, I just talked to Coach Harbaugh. I'm going to relay it to Ward Manuel, but Jim is staying. Shocker. Not shocker that Jim is staying. Jim Harbaugh is remaining the coach at Michigan, but it's because he wants to leave, all right, and he'll do this again next year and the year after that. But nobody in the NFL wanted anything to do with this guy. The Colts list came out of coaches that they're interviewing. It's like 10 or 11 deep, including Aaron Glenn, who's already interviewed, and Ben Johnson, who already interviewed from the Lions. Mike Kafka now is on the list, the Giants OC, bunch of people. D'Amico Ryans, didn't have Jim Harbaugh on there, which surprises me because I thought Jim Irsay, Mr. Irsay, the owner of the Colts, is just as weird as Harbaugh. I thought that'd be a match made in heaven. Apparently not. So there will be no Ben Johnson versus Jim Harbaugh battles for an NFL coaching job. Ben Johnson, we're going to talk about in a second, hot on the Carolina list. Harbaugh talked to Carolina. They wanted nothing to do with him. And the Broncos interviewed him, and they're going in a different direction. So there you go. That's the latest on that. All right, what's going on with Ben Johnson? We will get into that coming up next. But first, I got to tell you about PrizePicks. We just talked about it. So much fun, and you can play tonight, Monday Night Football playoffs. I love this. Tampa Bay against Dallas in what could be Tom Brady's last game as a Bucs quarterback. Cowboys are the better team. If you want to play a little fantasy, you want to have some fun with it, make some entries and player projections and win some money, go to prizepicks.com or go to the app. Tonight, you can take Dak Prescott to throw for more than 270 passing yards. Tony Pollard to run for less than 85. Whatever it is, it's fun. You pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than the PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And what's great about PrizePicks is it's not just NFL. You could play college hoops today. Tyson Walker and MSU against Purdue. You could play NBA, NHL, whatever it is. Wings, Avs, playing today. All of that at prizepicks.com or on the app. Download the app or go to the website to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. Deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And hey, this Locked On Lions episode is sponsored by BetterHelp Therapy Online. Hey, you need to talk to somebody, you're looking for a therapist, but you're not sure you want to do this in person and you don't know where to go and where to turn. I'm telling you, life doesn't come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you or it's normal to feel stuck and want to talk to somebody, that's why BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient, secure, and accessible anywhere, 100% online. Everybody deserves to feel their best. The great thing is you want to be comfortable in the process. BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. All the benefits of in-person therapy, but it's 100% online. And if you don't like your therapist, you can change it out. It's great. No waiting rooms, no traffic. Couldn't be simpler. Get unstuck with BetterHelp. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, so Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson has been a hot commodity. He has interviewed for the Houston Texans job. He has interviewed for the Indianapolis Colts job. He is set to interview in person for the Carolina Panthers job coming up. Actually, I think it was Panthers and Texans already, Colts coming up. But CBS Sports on their pregame show yesterday before the Miami Buffalo game had a guy in there named Jonathan Jones who used to cover the Panthers. He's all of a sudden their new pregame insider like Jay Glazer or Rap Sheet or La Canfora, any of those guys. And Jonathan Jones reported that the leader in the clubhouse for the Carolina Panthers opening is, in fact, Lions OC Ben Johnson. Jones said that David Tepper, the owner down there, really likes Ben Johnson's offensive mind. They're looking for somebody to be creative. They like this young guy. And that right now, Ben Johnson is in the lead for that position. Also, there are reports that Vic Fangio, the former head coach of the Broncos, who also has been a defensive coordinator forever, is also interviewing for the Panthers job. And there's some talk now that if you hire Ben Johnson as sort of this youngish offensive mind, you're going to want a former head coach, somebody with experience, somebody with some knowledge to be the defensive coordinator and to kind of help a young first-time head coach like a Ben Johnson. Seen this numerous times in the NBA when a young pup or a young assistant gets elevated to the head coaching job, and then kind of his associate head coach is an experienced guy. Like Juwan Howard at Michigan had Phil Martelli as his associate head coach, somebody with experience that's coached before, because Juwan had never been a head coach before. So keep your eye on that. I think the Vic Fangio thing is like not a good sign for us here because we want Ben Johnson to stay. And certainly he's a wanted commodity and he's done such a good job. But this is going to be something that is pretty fluid and you got to keep your eye on. It doesn't sound like Sean Payton is in on the Carolina scene. He was on the Colin Cowherd show today and said, hey, I'll talk to Houston. But again, there's got to be compensation. If you want Sean Payton, you're going to have to send draft picks, money, maybe even players to the New Orleans Saints to get him because he's still under contract for 2 more years with New Orleans. But it's obvious he doesn't want to go back and coach the Saints, and they are keeping Dennis Allen for another year. By the way, speaking of teams that might need coaches, what about the Chargers this weekend and Brandon Staley? How does Brandon Staley keep his job in L.A. with the Chargers? Now, many of the players have stumped for him, came out publicly and said there's nobody better. We love him. But, man, he has just made mistake after mistake over the last couple of years. And that Charger collapse the other day against Jacksonville. You lead 27-0, and then you start messing around and going for it here and not kicking here. And, man, that was brutal. And Brandon Staley's a defensive whiz and a former defensive coordinator. But he looks a little overmatched as a head coach. And the Chargers chargered again over the weekend. And now Jacksonville moves on, and they will face the Kansas City Chiefs this weekend, whereas the Bills will play the Bengals. And again, tonight, You got Tampa Bay and Dallas. I don't see how Dallas loses this game. Dallas is a superior team. 12-win team. Bucks have been shaky all year, won a bad division with 8 wins. But again, it's Tom Brady. And he could pull a rabbit out of his you-know-what, and they could go play San Francisco next weekend. So we'll have to wait and see. I hope Ben Johnson stays. I hope somehow, some way, somebody else gets that job. And they've interviewed some other people. And look, Mike Kafka, I mentioned before, is a name to watch for some of these jobs. The Giants OC has done a tremendous job. You watch some of the design runs for Daniel Jones and how they've responded with basically Darius Slayton, Kenny Galladay, who's always benched, and a pretty young receiving core. That's a name to watch. Mike Kafka, certainly. Maybe in Indianapolis, maybe in Carolina. We'll have to wait and see. All right, coming up next, I want to end with this. It's something I saw this weekend that the Lions need. The Lions desperately need, that I watched this weekend, and we will do that coming up next. First, though, our friends at Ultimate Football GM, the mobile game that is just so much fun. If you ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your football franchise, well, your dream can come true, and this game is definitely for you. You manage every strategic aspect of your team. You play through the season and lead your team to glory, and you're responsible for everything: hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks. It's all there for you at Ultimate Football GM. It's so much fun. All the folks at Locked On have played, have accounts, and are busting each other's chops over it. It's awesome. Locked On Lions listeners can get a 100% free boost to their franchise when you use the promo code Locked On. You got to put all caps, though, LOCKEDON, in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps to make sure you get it checked out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on the app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. Hope everybody is celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Man, what can you say about Martin Luther King? Just a legend, a pioneer. And on a day like today, especially with all the sports that was going on, you celebrate and you just soak in what he meant to this world, to this country, to this society, and his fight for equality each and every day for everybody. You wouldn't have black GMs, African-American head coaches, athletic directors, presidents, without a Dr. King. So always an important day today, that's for sure. All right, so this weekend I watched a lot of things. I watched all the games. Yesterday was awesome. Miami and Buffalo was exciting. Giants and Vikings was exciting. Last night came down to the end. Ravens and Bengals was exciting. And one thing I saw that I think Brad Holmes must address with this Lions team to even get them over the hump and get them even more into the playoffs deeper next year and maybe win the division is on the interior of the defensive line. All right, we know this. The Lions have some decisions to make with Charles Harris, with Romeo Okwara. Which guy will be brought back? Which guy might be let go to relieve some cap space? You know, Michael Brockers is not going to be back. Lions on the interior of the defensive line had a guy in Isaiah Buggs this year that played nicely. All right, he was pretty good. But the Lions don't have what I saw yesterday from 3 players, all right, in 3 different games. Dolphins, Bills. Miami stayed in that game because of number 94, Christian Wilkins, who has a D-tackle, nose tackle, was everywhere. Unblockable. The Lions don't have that on the interior of their D-line. They don't have it. The Giants game. Dexter Lawrence destroyed the Vikings and Garrett Bradbury and Kirk Cousins all day yesterday. The Giants won for a lot of reasons, but Dexter Lawrence was a monster on the interior for the Giants yesterday. And a big reason why Cousins had to check down on that last play to Hawkinson. How about TJ Hawkinson? What a game he had yesterday. He was amazing. But Cousins checked down on 4th and 8 for a 3-yard pass because here comes Dexter Lawrence. Dude is just a bully inside. Lions don't have that. Aleem McNeil, good player. Isaiah Buggs, solid. But imagine putting somebody next to those guys. Imagine having a rotation where you got a third guy that's a stud on the interior like that. And then last night, DJ Reader for the Bengals. Late in the game, Ravens moving. They try the run game. Reader just put a stop to it. I love these big-time D tackles that just are space eaters, but can also disrupt things. Quarterbacks, yeah, edge rushers coming at them, get to them, but it's that inside rush. That's what Jared Goff, you can tell sometimes when he gets happy feet. It's because that inside rush. I'd love to see Brad Holmes, number 6, if Brian Bresee is there from Clemson, and you can get him and put him next to McNeil and Buggs and Hutchinson and those guys. If somehow Jalen Carter was there at 6, which I don't think he will be. Can you imagine a disruptor on that D line? It's exactly what the Lions need. All right, we're back again. We're trying to track down Jim Nagy this week from the Senior Bowl, try to get him on. Other special guests as well on a Monday edition of Locked On Lions. Hope everybody has a good Monday night and a Tuesday, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.